It's just that I feel that there has to be more people like me in this world that can't just accept this kind of either left-wing narrative or right-wing narrative or some other tribal kind of narrative. And instead, I want to start a community of people who think independently, who think eclectically, who might agree with conservatives on some matters and might agree with liberals on other matters. People who are more interested in the truth rather than just getting along with people because we're in that tribe, or because we I don't want to. I want to get out of this world where you're either with me or you're my enemy. Basically, you're either a good guy or you're Nazi or worthless communist. Or I mean, we got to get away from this kind of rhetoric of really kind of a destructive rhetoric. Anyway, let me get back to my script. I'm already off script, which that's because for me it's very hard to read from scripts. I tend to be a very how would I say this? A very spontaneous type person. Thoughts come out of my mind, and I usually say things, and it's hard for me to speak in a script, which probably is a good thing, because I think that's a big problem in our society today. Is a lot of people appear to be reading from scripts, whether it's a left-wing narrative or script, or whether it's a right-wing one. Okay, let me get back to this, if I can figure out how to get this thing to move. Okay, so I'm doing some reading here, and then I'll probably ad-lib a little bit. That's what I meant to say, ad-lib a lot. Okay, I know that there are two major political parties in the United States, and they're filled with people who believe that their political views constitute reality. And what's more, that they represent what is moral or what is right, and that if you disagree with them, then you're wrong. I also know that they both genuinely believe this, and yet they can't both be right, obviously, which also implies that they might both not be entirely wrong either. And it's the nuance that I'm after here. I go ad-libbing again. And that's what I want to get to, is nuance. It's kind of absurd that we have to accept one narrative or the other, when reality is much more nuanced. It's much more complex, So as things develop on this channel, assuming I stick with it, and that depends in part on whether anybody's interested or not, is that, I'm going to be critical of people on the left and the right. I'm going to be critical of cancel culture, of what people call woke. I'm going to be critical of wokeness. And I'm also going to be critical of some of the conservative voices and some of the voices on the right. I'm going to be criticizing people like Tucker Carlson, Brett Weinstein, who's kind of on the left, although the left the left thinks he's right-wing now, which is absurd. I'm going to criticize Sam Harris. I'm going to criticize Joe Rogan and Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar, and I'm going to criticize a lot of people. But don't get me wrong, I respect all these people, and I think I respect some more than others. Obviously, Tucker's not high on my list, but I respect his right for free speech, and I'm not going to call him a traitor simply because he disagrees with me, simply because I believe he's wrong about Ukraine and other matters. So if you stick around here, you're going to find that my views are going to be very. The minute you think I'm on one side, you're going to hear some view from me that's on the other side. But I'm not just going to state my views and pretend that I have some kind of moral certainty about them, because number one, I don't have moral certainty, and that if you can convince me that I'm wrong about something, if you can show me the evidence, if you can make a strong argument, then I will, I'll come around and I'll change my mind. I probably should talk a little bit about my background. I have a master's degree in English, and I have minor degrees, like associate's degrees, and I took a lot of other classes in sciences and philosophy. I have a associate's degree in Asian American Studies from a community college, and then I took upper division courses, because I was planning on getting a minor and attaching it to my degree. And so I took the number of hours that I would have needed to do that, but I just never applied for it. And plus I took classes that I was more interested in instead of going by a strict format. So the point is that I am formally educated, but I also want to tell you that that doesn't mean a fucking thing, because there's a lot of really dumb people that are formally educated. So I'm not saying that to say, oh, you should listen to me because, you know, I have a master's degree. That makes me smarter than other people. It doesn't. Trust me. There are people with PhDs that are dumb as nails. And there's people that haven't graduated high school that are just ingenious. And not just in their specific areas. Sometimes in areas sometimes in areas like science, and I mean, they're up there with the PhDs or in some cases far advanced. Let me give you two examples. There's a guy who's a, what do you call it, a horticulturist. I think it's a horticulturist, and he's just a wealth of information about plants. I don't think he's had formal training. He's self-taught. If you look him up on YouTube, he goes by the title of Crime Pays, but Botany Doesn't. He's a botanist, that's what he is. This guy's brilliant. Never been to college. He could teach some doctors. He could teach some PhDs. Another example is a mycologist here in Oakland. Oh dear, I think I'm going to forget his name, but he's an expert on mushrooms. His name will come to me later, but I don't think he's had formal training, and he could teach PhD candidates. He knows more than a lot of PhDs and doctors. So that doesn't mean anything. It means that I've been in academia, so I know something about academia. The fact that I have a master's degree, and the fact that I got my master's degree maybe, what was it, 2 years ago? I graduated in 21, I guess it was. It tells you that I know something about what it's like to be in college right now in America. So I know a lot about critical race theory. In fact, I wrote my master's thesis was basically a reaction to critical race theory. And I have very strong criticisms of the education system today and critical race theory. And basically it's just the way that ideology is so pronounced now in academic institutions that it makes it's really destroying the academy, you know. I don't care that somebody has a left-wing view. I don't care whether someone has a right-wing view. But when you have a left-wing view and people can't criticize it, if you talk about critical race theory as if it were some kind of gospel truth. You know, John McWhorter has talked about critical race theory, and he claims that it's like a religion, and I absolutely agree with him. And I oppose critical race theory for a lot of reasons, not just academically and intellectually, but I've also lived in the inner city. I've lived in neighborhoods that were almost all African American, other than me, and I could think of one other white guy down the road. My kids are half black and half Native American Cherokee, or well, not half. I mean, but they're half black and Native American Cherokee, and obviously half white. So I have intimate knowledge of what it's like to live in the inner city. I've had many close friends. My ex-wife is black. My business associates, I had my accountant, who is one of my best friends, black woman, great accountant. I have familiarity. I'm obviously not expert because I don't have black skin, but I have familiarity with very, you know, I love black culture, and I have a lot of familiarity with it. And I totally disagree with critical race theory. Some people equate that with not wanting to teach black history. This is the claim that leftists make, that we want to whitewash history, that conservatives are, you know, that's white supremacy, which is all bullshit. But nobody wants to whitewash black history or slavery. I think there's a major difference. I don't believe that black people are victims. I don't believe that they're incapable. I don't believe that a black person can't be the smartest person in the math class or in the university, a PhD. I really admire people like Glenn Lowry. If you have faith in black people, I don't think you're not going to say that they're victims, right? You're not going to say that you need to lower you need to make the tests easier so they can pass the test. I don't believe any of that bullshit. I think that there's so many amazing black thinkers, artists, but I don't want to judge people by their skin color. Nowadays that makes you racist. If you believe that in essentially a colorblind society, that means you're naive and racist, which is absurd. It may be the case that some people are naive if they think that, for example, if you were to think that, in this society, and particularly historically and on average, that if you were black and a white person applied for the same job, that some people might, that the black person might be at a disadvantage. Depends on who's hiring them. It depends on what their internal biases are and their prejudices and biases that all people have, by the way. And so they might be at a disadvantage, but the way we change that is by doing something about that on the individual level. And so my point is that you can believe in a colorblind society and still realize that it's not, everyone doesn't have exactly the equal opportunity. I don't deny that the blacks have had to contend with racism and still do sometimes, but I also don't deny that sometimes nowadays white people deal with racism and have to contend with it. Frankly, I'm educated and qualified to teach English at the college level, and I have taught English at San Francisco State as a graduate teaching assistant. But nowadays, it's much easier. It's much easier if you're anybody but me, a white male that's heterosexual. That's just a fact, okay? I don't care. I'm not going to be a victim. I'm not going to bow to any ideology. The idea that I have to, in order for me to get a job here, what I would have to do is, most of these colleges require what they call a diversity statement. And in that diversity statement, this is how the script goes. And ask John McWhorter about this if you don't believe me. What I would do is I would talk about my privilege as a white person, right? And if I had any disabilities, which I actually do because I had a bad back injury, so I have chronic pain. But again, I don't want to go into that because I don't buy into the victim thing. So I would talk about my white privilege if I want a job, and I write out a paper. It's called a diversity statement. Talk about my white privilege, and I would prove in there why I believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I'm sure you've all heard of, the DEI. That's the new code word, and it really means that you have left-wing political view and ideology. And so what I basically would have to do in that paper is talk about the diversity, equity, inclusion, and why I would be good for it. And here's the absurdity of that, in my opinion. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I live in Berkeley. I'm surrounded by liberals and left-wingers. I call myself a liberal, but I'm not a left-winger. And here's the Bay Area is very diverse. I can't throw a stone without hitting somebody that's different from me in some way, whether they're a minority, whether they're black, Latino, Asian American, or foreigner here to study, or gay, or lesbian, or transsexual. The Bay Area is very diverse. It's I don't know if there's any enclaves left, or at least not many. There are some, but not many in the Bay Area that are majority white. And so the idea that somebody would apply for a teaching job in the San Francisco Bay Area, like I would like one ideally in Berkeley or Contra Costa County, which is Richmond, San Pablo, or San Francisco. The idea that people would apply for a teaching job and not be pro-diversity, that's insane. So why the hell do you have to prove it? I mean, it's freaking insane. Over half your students are going to be some minority of some kind. They're not going to be a white heterosexual male. If you want to teach, meaning you want to help students, you care about people, and you want to impart something onto them. Everybody here is for diversity. I'm for diversity. I'm not for DEI because it doesn't mean what it claims to mean. It's not diversity, equity, inclusion. It's visual diversity. It's behavioral diversity. It's Black, gay, Latino, bisexual, transsexual, woman, man. It's diverse that way, but everybody has the same politics. It's very non-diverse. It's very orthodox and there's too much hive mind type thinking and stuff. The kind of diversity we need diversity of ideology. We need diversity of politics. We need diversity of opinion. We need true diversity. And I love diversity. I also love people of different cultures. It enriches my life to know Black people, to know Latinos, to know gay people, to know people enrich my life. And so I love diversity, but I hate ideological diversity. I hate it. I wouldn't want to be around all conservatives, and I don't want to be around all liberals. I want people to challenge me. I want to hear different points of view. To me, I love learning, and to me, the major principle of education would be to stimulate people and to bring forth a lot of different ideas and to have it out, to discuss them vigorously, to argue, to debate passionately. Any idea that's worth holding can be defended, and the idea that you have to accept certain truths, certain ideological beliefs as being self-evident and you're not able to challenge those, and if you challenge them, you could get fired or canceled or shut out. That's just absurd. We got to get around that. Anyway, I've completely gone off the script, but I don't want it to sound like I'm just going to be arguing against the left. I'm not. I mean, I'm going to argue against the right too. There's a lot I disagree with, and usually I come to some kind of nuance. Like I'll partially agree, partially disagree. I reject the notion that conservatives are bad people, that they're racist. I reject that they're stupid. I reject these kind of stereotypes. I think that probably conservatives have, at least half of the answer, and probably liberals or people on the left have half of the answer. When I think of Bernie Sanders, I think of a guy who, when I listen to him describe the problems in America, I basically agree with him. But when I listen to him describe the solutions, I very much disagree with him. I mean, income inequality is a real thing. We do need to do something about education. We need to help kids in the inner city who aren't learning or who aren't graduating. We need to do something about homelessness, mental health, drug addiction. Here's an example. I'm pro-drug legalization, but I'm completely against letting addicts pitch a tent on the street in front of somebody's business and then ruin their business. There's got to be common sense solutions. When somebody is so addicted that they're pooping on the sidewalk and disrupting other people's lives, they're basically violating the rights of others, pitching a tent in front of someone's business and keeping them from making a living. And then the city comes in, the fucking politicians come in, and they say, Oh, we're going to pick the homeless person, and you the business person is fucked. I mean, uh, you're a bad person because you want them gone from in front of your store where they're scaring away your customers. So I have lots to say about issues like homelessness. I have a lot to say about the pandemic. I was shocked at how the two-class system emerged during the pandemic, where if you were on the left, if you worked for the government, if you worked in education, you were able to stay home, work from home, you got paid. You even got a free check from the government. If you owned a business, if you were working class, you either had to work or you couldn't work, and you may have lost your apartment, you may have lost your business, you may have gone bankrupt. If you were an apartment owner, you might have got somebody living rent free for 3 years, and it might have just destroyed your life savings that you had saved to buy a home. Oh God, there's so much wrong in society that I feel like I have to speak out, and I want to try to build a community of people who are willing to speak out. And then I want to comment on a lot of political and social things. I watch YouTube videos like a lot of you, and then I see such faulty logic coming from the left and the right. It's the old notion that we need to change things, we need to fix things, but don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. I gave an example of drug addiction, or drug legalization, but as soon as somebody in the liberty to use drugs, when they then go on to violate other people's rights, then they lose that liberty. When you can't function anymore, you're basically preying on others and harming others by camping in front of their business. And also you're so addicted that you're very likely going to die of an overdose pretty soon. Then society has the right to come in and say, okay, you should, we gave you the freedom, but you're not using it responsibly. You're harming others. So now we're going to send you to a treatment center where you're going to go live for 3 months. My idea is, let's build some places out in the middle of the forest. Let's build camps out there. Let's have counselors out there. Let's have medical doctors, medical professionals, psychiatrists. Let's get people treated for psychiatric disorders. Let's put them through detox humanely. Help them detox off the drugs. Let's reteach them how to live within society. And let's hold them there for 3 months and teach them responsibility, get them clean, get them as healthy, and then give them another shot. That might save a lot of lives, save a lot of homeless people that are addicted. And at the same time, it's respecting the rights of the people whose rights they are abusing. We need changes in society, and you don't have to like go from the left all the way over to the far right. Anyway, I've gone way off script, and I hope to in the future cover a lot of issues, and a lot will depend on you, and whether or not I can build a community, whether or not people are like-minded, or whether or not people just want to keep voting for the same people that are screwing things up like Governor Newsom. But then on the other hand, who just go to the other extreme and go to the right and think people like Trump are going to save them, when there's a hell of a lot wrong with Trump, and he would make a lousy president. And that I will get into in the future. But let me say that as I criticize some people, and I criticized a bunch of people in the beginning, people who I actually respect, a lot of them, I don't want to take away anyone's right. I don't want to cancel anybody. I don't want to silence anybody. I think ex-President Trump should be able to go on Twitter and Facebook and shouldn't be censored, even though I disagree with him. So the notion that you have to agree with me or be canceled, I think that's bullshit. I want to get away from that. And just so I don't leave it on the wrong note, I don't favor Biden either. I don't think January 6th was a insurrection, as the left-wing media says, or as many Democrats say. I think it was a riot. I think it was a bunch of people that got out of hand. These are people who, many didn't have any criminal records before. Many weren't that much ideological before Trump. They just got caught up in the the mob psychology, and they rioted on January 6th. There might have been 15 militia members who actually were stupid enough to think they would have gotten away with an insurrection, which, by the way, there was no chance these people were going to succeed on January 6th. I mean, even if they had taken over the Capitol temporarily, even if they had tried to hold on to power or whatever, which wasn't going to happen, but even if it was going to, the military wouldn't have gone along with it. They were never going to succeed. And, and most of them were just fools. I mean, think about the QAnon shaman. That guy's a joke. You want to say he's an insurrectionist? That guy needs mental health. Mental health, speaking of which. I think he's in prison for like 3 or 4 years. The guy's a nut, and he's in prison for 3 or 4 years. And then we have murderers out on the street that aren't doing any time at all. Second, third, fourth offense. I mean, it's freaking crazy. And during the protests that associated and the riots that associated Black Lives Matter, you had Democratic politicians bailing them out of jail. I mean, where's the justice there? Where's the equal treatment? So again, don't get confused. I'm not going to just take one side or the other. There's a lot of leftists that I like, a lot of liberals, and there's a lot of conservatives I like. It's not a culture war for me. So that's, I'm not going to take sides, but I'm going to criticize both sides, and I'm going to find things to agree with people. I'm going to seek nuance. I'm not going to pretend to know all the answers either, but I'm going to talk about different ways to think about things, and then people can agree or disagree, and I'm willing to learn. My pride isn't such that I have to defend my opinions. If you either agree or you don't, they're either wrong or right, or they're wrong, or they need adjustment, and I'm always willing to adjust my ideas. I've really gone off script completely, but that's okay and I've covered a lot of the different areas that I'm passionate about. But I think I'll end this somewhere here. Like I said, how much I continue to do this depends on whether people are interested, whether you support me. So if you do support it, share it, like it. I hate it when people say that. Hit the button. But if you do believe in it, share. If you can afford to help me, and then I can have a more professional thing in the future, and I can get help and maybe do some research and stuff, more research and stuff on top. Like I said, I'm not going to be able to get a job, I don't think, here unless I pretend to be someone I'm not. I'm sure I can find a job somewhere. I'm not saying I'm a victim, but this is what I would like to do if it works out. So I'll leave a link in there to my Venmo account. I don't have any Patreon or anything set up. And again, whether I continue in the success depends on whether people are interested and whether people want to support me. But if people don't have money, I don't want them to support me. I don't ever want to be one of those people that sits there and tells you to buy gold. Basically advertise. I'm not going to ask anyone to do anything I don't believe in, and I'm, just let the chips fall where they may. If you want to help me, help. If you don't. Anyway, until next time, we'll see. I'll try to do a video at least once a week. Right now I feel pretty good. I feel like I could do about 8 videos right now. And so I might do more at other times. So we'll just see how it goes. Thanks. And it's getting kind of late, so sorry. Kind of long. Thank you.